Welcome to the Black Men Think podcast. If this is your first time here, know that the views and opinions expressed by the Black Men Think podcast are those of the Black Men Think podcast and not the individual members. With that being said, we're about to be unapologetically, undeniably black. Enjoy.
So look, man, I just got one question. How do you cope with your parents getting older?
Man, it's funny. Even that question is like, it kind of hits you with the reality that you're getting older.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Like, I mean, here, I think we both are, 36, right? You still 36.
Yeah, 36.
And, granted, you feel young. I mean, honestly, like, no cap. Like, I look in the mirror half the time and I still see the 25-year-old Marlon. Now,
Same.
The rest of the world does not see the 25-year-old. And I'm gonna tell you how I know. Like, I'm gonna tell you how I know. When you start getting called old man or like the OG, the OG at the job, or at the office, that's when it sink in. That's when it start hitting. Like, I'm surrounded by some young folk. It ain't me no more.
It definitely hit me when I'm because the industry that I'm in and outside of work, even at work, I start to notice it a little bit more too, because those conversations start to merge a little bit. Even though I'm like the younger guy at my place of employment, you still kind of start to understand in a sense like, oh man, we're having the same conversations now. Like, it's not like, but in the other field of work, I don't see it as much as I used to, because I'm not doing shows like, due to COVID. But it's just so funny, when I was doing shows, I would see how people are moving around and how they're acting. And it didn't hit till later on, like, oh, they 22. Like, they're supposed to be doing, you know what I'm saying? It's like, a lot of times it didn't compute, because while I might look in the mirror and don't see 36, I know that I am 36. And so some of the things that, like, for example, if I got something going on, I'm there, and then I'm back to the crib.
Yeah.
I ain't got time for the extra. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might get around people who are like, oh man, let's do this, let's do that. And I'm like, no, I'm about to go back to the crib. Like, I'm done. You know what I'm saying? And it's not even about that I can't hang. It's like, I don't want to hang. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't, you start thinking logically about everything. It's like, okay, if we go here, I'm going to spend $50 here on food and drinks. I was like, I got food and drinks at home. I can do something else with that 50.
No, you legit be like, I'm tired.
Yeah, like, no.
Like, I ain't got no energy for that, bro. I'm going home. I'm going home.
Yeah. So that's so real though. That's so real. Because it definitely takes being around a quote unquote younger demographic to truly understand that you are getting older, right? It definitely takes seeing that, because I think, like you said, we get in our own circles, our own head, and like all of us, like I said, what you just said, I see y'all, and I still see, apartments off Windy Hill. Like, I still, you know what I'm saying? Like, it don't compute that. And then even if I go back and look at some pictures, I'm like, okay, even though I've always wore a beard, I used to keep my beard like super low. So it wasn't like, it's not a full, you know what I'm saying? But now we all like legit got a beards, bro. Like, and you start seeing the 20-year-old, the 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds, and no, bro, they mustache and goatee, or like, real braids and all of that. So yeah. That's that harsh reality. Like, yeah, okay, I'm pushing 40.
I mean, it changed for me, or at least it hit. I think it was about a week ago, man, where I was at the office. And we got a lot of stuff going on right now during these times. Families in need and trying to get resources out to folks. And so a lot of shipments coming in. It's holiday time. We do this big holiday giveaway thing. So it's boxes coming in. I'm hitting the door like boom, boom. I got them, boom. Like UPS dropping off multiple things. I'm stacking the boxes up and trying to pick them all up together. Moving around like I still got a 25-year-old body. In my mind, I think I have a 25-year-old body. The next morning, man, when I tell you, boy, I got out of bed, my back was hurting. It hit real, it hit different, right? It hit really different, and it is a reality, when you really sit back and think, like, man, all right, I know we all see each other still as the homeboys from from college, from Georgia State, probably post-college era, apartment era. Reality is we all married. Most of us got kids. Most of us married. And, even just talking to my parents, it's like, man, these are different conversations that are happening right now,
Right,
it's
right.
Like, and granted, I'm usually running so much. So the times that I'm catching up with my parents is, generally speaking, they like, let me see my grandbabies,
Right.
So,
right.
That alone is just like, wow, this is crazy. Like, my parents are calling to speak to their grandchildren as opposed to us just chopping it up type of thing,
It's funny you say that because I was telling Trina probably a couple of weeks ago now, but she called her mom and was trying to have a conversation with her mom, and the girls wanted to talk to grandma. And I told her, I was like, no, you gotta talk to your mom like when they not around. Like that's what I've learned. Like, in order to have a conversation with my mom, the girls have to be asleep. Because otherwise it's like either they want to talk to her or she wants to talk to them type thing. You know what I mean? So I have to keep that in mind, because if you don't, it turns into like, man, I really just want to talk to my folks. Like, like, I know they call for the grandkids, but like, yeah, I kind of want to just talk to y'all, see what's going on with y'all, So I feel that. I feel that wholeheartedly.
It definitely just shifts the reality, though, because I was chatting with my wife the other day about this, and we're getting up there in age, like, and it's not that we're old, but what I'm saying is, like, we're most of us, whether it's us or our wives, are 3-4 years removed from 40, right? From hitting that next decade. And what that means for us is our parents are probably close to 70, if not already 70. I would say within that range, probably 62 and 73, 74, depending on, how big our families were and all that. Now, Tori's got some older siblings, and Corey has some older siblings.
Right.
I'm the only child. You're the oldest. But the reality is that, man, our parents are getting up there.
Yeah, man.
And with that comes real life, possibilities, or put it like this, things could change pretty quickly, for us. And that's parents, whether they're going through health issues, that's, just in general, life expectancy. And, most of them are hitting that age where, man, the reality is at some point, it might be a little bit different. We might be making those calls, or life may change, or even let's just say, even from a lifestyle standpoint, you get to, your parents get to that age where you start thinking about, okay, who's going to care for them? Are they going to move in with you? All of that. And so things can shift pretty quickly now. And I think it's probably just the reality that many of us probably have to face. Like, even my dad, like, he has some recent health issues. Thankfully, a few surgeries and some procedures and different things like that, things are kind of moving in the right direction. And then, most of us probably have at least one parent where it's just a mystery, right? Like my mom, I never know how she's really doing. I never know, bro. Like she never tells me. Like, I try to ask as many direct questions as I can. Mom, have you been to the doctor? Yeah, I'm going. Yeah, I've been, you know, it's just, I'm like, Mom, like, give me more, and I never get more. And so I've kind of just, with her, it's more or less, bruh, if she's on FaceTime and she's smiling and I can see her, I'm just going to take it
Yeah,
as okay. Otherwise, I have no idea. You know?
yeah. That's a conversation in itself, though, bro. Like, especially in Black communities, we are so tight-lipped on
So tightly.
what not only what we're going through, but especially when it comes to that health. Like, man, I mean, you know, like I'm dealing with an issue. Like, my God has His hands on my dad right now. Like, it is truly up to God what happens to my father right now,
Yeah.
and that is one of those things. It's a reality of like, man, as a 36-year-old man who truly loves his dad, like it is a reality that starts to sink in. Like, man, there's a strong possibility that my dad might not be here,
Yeah.
and you really start thinking about all kind of things. I mean, you know, these past couple of weeks, Ron thought about everything from like, yo, like who gonna walk my sister down the aisle when she get married? Like, I legit thought about this stuff, and it's crazy because I'm just now talking about it, and I haven't even expressed it. Like, Ace called me earlier, and we had a real good conversation, and he opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. And of course, my wife and I have talked, but y'all know I'm a quiet person until I'm quiet, and then when I'm ready to talk, you just need to be ready because like you're
Yeah.
gonna get it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But you know, I've had those thoughts. I've had those thoughts, just like, man, that. Then I'm just thinking about like, yo, how my mom, you know, what does she have to deal with? And you start instantly going into me. I've been going into like legit father mode, which is crazy. And Ace told me, he was like, look, bro, I understand all of that, but you know, that's just showing the type of character and the type of person you are. But also you got to think about you too, because you're trying to think about caring for everybody else, and like you got to think about caring for yourself too. And you know, it really was an eye-opening conversation because I haven't really took the time to think about me dealing with you know, with my dad's health
What's going
issue.
on? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been like literally, and I was talking to my wife about it. I was just like, yo, I'm just thinking about like, you know, what my mom got to deal with, what my, you know, I'm thinking about everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And so
Let me
it
ask you
is.
though.
Yeah, go ahead.
For somebody, and first of all, I appreciate you for like, you know, just kind of allowing this space to share.
Yeah,
You know, I
yeah,
know, and for our listeners, the reality is like, you know, JD is dealing with a real situation where,
yeah,
you know, his father is pretty sick. You know,
yeah.
and things can change pretty quickly. I think at any moment for the better or worse, right? You
Right,
know,
right,
so it
right.
just remains to be seen. And so, um, at what point did you? Because I mean, there's probably somebody out there who's facing something similar or has gone through,
I would assume so. I would
you know,
assume
something
so.
similar. Like, like how did you reconcile that? You know, in this space where we still kind of like, I mean, we probably see our parents the same, you know, and the
Hmm.
reality is they're getting older. Like, at what point did that shift where you realize, man, like my parents are getting to that point where,
Right.
you know,
Um. When my dad got sick the first time, when he had his first like extended hospital stay, it really sunk in that, oh no, my dad is sick. You know what I'm saying? Like it, you know how I don't know about you, but for me, like growing up, I never saw my dad go to the doctor. Like I remember my dad having I remember my dad going to the doctor or hospital twice. The first time I can't remember what it was for, but the second time I remember this was before all of the more recent things, but um, he fell off a ladder and he tore some ligaments in his hand. So that I remembered that. I remember him wearing a brace and all of that. But outside of that, bro, I never saw my dad go to the doctor. None of that, right?
yeah,
And so that time when he got sick and he was in the hospital for like a week, and I was just like, yo, like my dad is in the hospital. Like, and you know how you go in there, you're saying this was all pre-COVID and all this. So, but you go and you see, I was just like, man, like they are really helping my dad. You know, it's just that slow
it's
processing of,
hard to reconcile that. Yeah.
yeah, because for me, my whole life, I just see my dad handle stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like him handling himself, him handling the family. I saw that, right? And that was the first time where my dad was in a, I guess, a helpless state. And it was after he got out of the hospital and his condition changed to where it went from one day my dad was walking around, everything cool, and the next moment he had to have some assistance, like you know, like a little cart that he, you know, one of the, I forgot what you call it, but you know what I'm saying, like
right.
when I saw him like that, that messed me up because I ain't never seen my dad not be himself, and that was even like prior to that, him being sick. It was like, all right, cool, I got to deal with this, but I'm still upright, you know, going to, and you know, it was prior to that he had that situation where it was like, okay, you can't work anymore, and it was like, oh, that's big. Telling, you know, you tell somebody that worked their whole life that no, you can't work anymore, and he was like, what? But that didn't hit me as much as seeing my dad using a walker. That messed me up because it's just like I ain't never seen him like that, and it was just like what's going on, and so in the midst of all of that stuff happening, we had some of our most real conversations, like conversations that we've never had. It wasn't no father son. This was like grown man conversation. Just like, yo, pops, what's going on? Like, how you feeling? And for the first time, my dad was so vulnerable with me. He was like, man, I just need encouragement because everybody around me telling me what I need to do. And he was just like, he was I mean, he low key he was just depressed. Like you talking about a man that has worked his whole life and now he can't do it. And so things that he want to do, he just couldn't do it. And so he was really legit dealing with, even though he probably don't realize what that is, and people around him, because you know how it is in the Black household, we just don't talk about mental things. I recognize that, oh, my dad is depressed right now because he feeling less than as a man because he can't do the things that he's used to doing. You know what I mean? And so we had those conversations. It was just like, man, I appreciate it because this is the first time that someone has encouraged me to do something. And even like, and it wasn't even trying to throw my mom on the bus, but it was just like, all my mom knows is that he's Superman. Right. And that's the same thing all the kids know, is that's Superman over there. So, you know, my mom would tell me like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I don't think it really processed in her head that like, yo, he wants to do those things, but he just feeling like super down right now. And he needed more than just to be told what to do. He needed a conversation about like, we had a conversation where we was talking about like gardening, right? That's something my dad really taught me how to do, like gardening and whatnot. And he was like, yeah, man, I ain't been out in my garden in like, you know, like a month. And I was like, Dad, just go.
Yeah.
Like, even if you can't do nothing, just like roll back there and just go. Yeah. And, you know, I think in his head, he didn't even think about like, he was looking at the obstacle of not being able to do what he normally would be able to do in the garden. And my thing was like, while you can't do all of that stuff, you can still go. Right. So just go. Like, just go walk back there, just look at it, take it in and understand what that is. And that was like probably, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I'm thinking about that's probably one of the best conversations we've ever had, like in life in general, bro.
Bro, you bring up a crazy point that I've never ever considered, and it's what's going through our parents' heads during this time. Like, because for us, it's easy for us to think like, man, this is gonna be interesting. Like, you know, my parents are getting to that age where things may change. You know, whether it's health or whether it's, you know, if you have two parents still living, one passes on, you have to figure out, how to care for the other. What's the best case scenario for them? But, you're thinking about this internally with yourself. Like, what is this going to mean for my family? Is my mom or my dad going to have to move in or blah, 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 right? I never actually considered our parents are going through major shifts during this time too, because they slowly but surely are probably in some kind of way seeing their bodies not being able to do what they normally do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's their mind, for some people, their minds go first. For some people, it's just lifestyle, right? Like your ability to move or kind of do the things that you used to do. And we joke about it now, like, man, I picked some boxes up, my back is hurting. But no, like, legit, like, they are the age where body, organs and parts start acting completely differently or slowly really shutting down. And there has to be some type of mental, stress that comes with that because, the reality, honestly, while it's slowly but surely sinking in for us, is probably that much more blatant for them.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting that you say that because, I mean, most of us probably, pending the relationship we had with our parents, see them as a superhero. We probably see, or even, the spouse, or like whether it's your mom or your dad, they probably see each other in some capacity, as somewhat of a superhero. But as those things start changing, it changes the whole dynamic, man. And like, I just think about my dad when he, it just wasn't that long ago. I think it's probably no more than, maybe a little over a year ago, even, kind of had to be helped around a bit, had some bodily, areas that started, just causing some challenges. And, he got to the point where it was just very weird to see. It's like you look at it, you like, man, like you can't really move around the way that you used to, or you're dependent on something to do something that's natural, and it's just, it blows my mind. But at the same time, it has to be tripping him out too, because he has to be sitting there like, man, like this could go one of two ways, right? Like this could be the beginning of really the end for to some degree. It's probably what they're thinking. And even for my mom, it's just like her sitting by, makes me wonder, like, man, what is she trying to process right now? Like, is she thinking about different options or different, potential futures that are available to her right now? Like, let's say something happens to my dad, and definitely, whether he needs long-term care or a nurse or, whether he's gone or something, and it's just like, man, it's like you have to start, honestly, we put it like this. It's time for us at this point to really have those conversations with our parents. First of all, about, hypotheticals, like what are we going to do as a family if A or B or C happens?
Right.
Because I just think it's important for us to know what the wishes of our parents are, first of all. But at the same time, like, you got some serious conversations that you need to have with your parents about life insurance, about where important documents are, about, just all of that, man. Because, I mean, me and my wife were talking about it. We were like, man, there's so many questions that we have unanswered about our parents. Like if something were to happen to them, if something were to happen to my dad, and I showed up at my mom's house to help her out, I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't know what documents to pull up. I wouldn't know, it would be, I mean, at the end of the day, we need to know those things, and so, for anybody out there listening, I think it's hard conversations to have, but I think it's very important for you to pinpoint
100%.
all of that information and to make sure you have it organized, to make sure that, your parents know that you know everything that you need to know, to make sure that you communicate to them that, if you have any questions, because things can change very quickly, especially if you're in our age group.
That's so real. That's so real, man. And that's something that in our community we have to make that normal. We have to make that normal because it's not normal. It's just not normal. Like we don't talk about finances, number one, in our community. Like that's just health insurance, life insurance, like those things, disability insurance, those three things, man, are like can set up a family, can set up a generation, or it can kill a generation.
Oh, that's so real. That's
And
hard.
it really is like it's so much. And I know, depending on the type of people, like I'll tell you how this conversation typically goes. And well, you know what? Not typically. I'll tell you how this conversation went in my household. Me and my wife, we were getting stuff together. We were going through like Dave Ramsey classes, and we started to get like, trying to really get our finances on track, get out of debt, pay off all these bills, get our insurance, everything, meet with financial advisors, all these things, et cetera, et cetera. So we got all that stuff together, and the next piece was like, okay, you need to make sure your people, your parents got their stuff together. And so, I go to my parents and I ask them like, yo, y'all have life insurance? It was like, yeah, we got it, but it was casual. It wasn't on the priority list, because when you start talking about this stuff, unfortunately, people think that you're being pessimistic. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to talk about death. Like, what? No, I'm trying to live. Right. It's like, no, the thing is, if we don't have this conversation, we are dying. Right. Like that is something that, no matter how you want to put it, bro, I don't care. Like, me and you're both Christian men. We have faith, all of that. The one thing that we know for certain, one day we clocking out of here. Like, that's just, if you don't know nothing else in life, one day you're clocking out. Like, that's what it is. So with something so certain as death, I don't understand why in our communities it's so hard for us to deal with that certainty. Like, we and that, now I'm not talking about grieving or mourning or anything. I'm talking about the financial aspect. We have such a hard time just saying, like, you know what? You need life insurance. If you die today, what happens? We don't want to talk about it. Like, we just legit don't want to talk about it, bro. Like, and that's something that has to stop, because like you said, if something like right now, what I'm dealing with right now, I don't know where nothing at for my folks. Like, not like my mom or my dad. I don't know where nothing is at. I'm going to a house that has 20 plus years of living in. So you know what that looks like. 20 plus years of living is accumulation, right? And my folks ain't the hoarders by no mean of the imagination, but they got 20 plus years of stuff in the house, and I don't know where nothing at. You know what I'm saying? So, that's one of those things, bro. Like, and I'm so thankful that my wife is somebody who's like very organized, and to the point of like, nah, Jay, this is where everything is right here.
No, even in my wife, even to the point where she honestly is the brains behind that type of information in this home, and it's just, I mean, and let me say this too, like to couples, I think it's important for y'all to have those conversations, especially if you have children, because at any given point, and that's the thing, JD. I think the reason why we don't have those conversations, especially in Black homes, it's very hard for us to face the reality that we can be gone in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, and that's really with anybody, to be honest with you. It's just, we get used to living, we get used to life being a certain way, we get used to our routine. Nobody wakes up thinking about the fact that they could leave the earth that day. But it's definitely a chance that you can. And nobody also thinks about what them leaving the earth means for everybody else around them, whether it be your children, whether it be your spouse, if your parents leave, what that means for you and your generations to come. And so, we're living, we're in the process of living, but you said it best. We're also in the process of dying, right?
Yeah.
And it's very important for us to take that seriously, not just for ourselves, but for the people that we love. And so, like, a goal that I think I have, honestly, is to sit down with my folks very soon and to talk through everything. To talk through, like, is there a will that y'all have created? And I think they've alluded to the fact that they have, but, like, we've never really sat down and gone through it, So it's like, for one, I would be trying to figure out where it is to be, to begin with. Like, is there a company I need to be, or a legal team that I need to be contacting to get a copy of it? Is it a trust? Is it a will? What's the, official format of it? You know, what's going to happen to y'all's property? There's so many questions that will hit a person, especially at a point where they're potentially grieving, you know, the loss of someone too. And for me, you know, even this conversation alone is letting me know, man, like I need to make that a priority.
It has to be. It has to be a priority because what you just said is so important, right? People are trying to figure out all that information and they're grieving at the same time.
Right.
Like, because we know what it's like. Somebody, this is the process is if somebody dies, you instantly go into, okay, now I have to get this person, whether they want to be buried or they want to be cremated, whatever. You got to figure out that part first. Then you got to figure out how that's going to be paid. Then you got to figure out, like you said, house situations or other finances, like medical bill, like all of these things come into play. And people, the thing is that people don't realize this stuff don't, when you die, the only person that don't have to deal with it is the person that's dead.
Right.
Like everybody else got to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? And so they got to deal with what happens to all of this property out here. What happens to these cars? What happens to the finances? What happens to the debt? That person has to, they got to know what to do with that. And the only way, like one of the, man, I was listening to a audio book, and I do this all the time where I forget who said what. And I apologize because I can't quote them properly. But they said, man, the best gift that you can give somebody in death is the certainty that you wrote, you know how exactly how you want everything laid out. So like imagine you passing and and the letter is handed over with details of everything. You ain't got to guess if this person wanted to be cremated or they want to be put in the ground. They told you right here on line 1.
Yeah.
Line 2, they told you this. Here's the will. Line 3, they told you all of this. Like when all of those things are done in detail, the only thing left is for people to people might be upset, but it's already documented. You can be upset all you want to, but it's documented. It's there. It takes all the guesswork out. We don't have to know, like, bro, I mean, all the way down to, it's crazy, but you got to get so intentional about this stuff. And I'm saying this with a double-edged sword because some of this stuff I haven't done myself, but all the way down to if you want your obituary done, you already got a photo down to you for your obituary. Like, because that's something like we joking about, but that's
crazy. Who would even think to do that? But you're right.
It's like we've all been to funerals and we see obituary pictures of folks who, that picture 30 years old, that person ain't looked like that for 25, 30 years. Right?
Yeah.
Give them, like, no, I took this picture in 95. I love this picture. This my picture. I want it. Like, when you get cynical like that and put it down to there, like, it may sound crazy now, but I guarantee I've seen families argue over obituary pictures, bro. Like in my family, I've seen it.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, bro, what are we doing? It's unnecessary when this person can tell you exactly what they want all the way down the line.
What you're alluding to is there's a responsibility of the person that's alive to make things peaceful for the people that will mourn for them, right? Because at the end of the day, death is going to cause so many emotions. It's going to cause so many. Nobody's prepared for it. Nobody's usually like really ready to face it. You know, 9 times out of 10, people are not ready to face that a loved one has passed on, unless it's something that's very slow and they kind of had a chance to process. But what that does is it creates peace, or at least more opportunities for peace for the people that you love. You know, like for instance, for my parents to take the time to sit down with me. I'm an only child for one, you know, and for me, I'm the only one that is going to be able to help my mom or my dad should one of them pass on. So it would be a much more peaceful situation if I were able to kind of have a level head on, okay, let's say my father passes, God forbid, right? I can go sit with my mom and say, Mom, like her mind is probably in a million places. I say, Mom, all right, let me take care of this, that, because I know where it is already. Or even, let me make it even more personal. If I pass, my wife, who has 4 small children, doesn't have to think about a million different things along with the reality that these 4 small children still have to care of. and God forbid it happens anytime soon in a pandemic or something crazy, you know. But I'm just basically saying at the end of the day, if I do my due diligence now, it makes the process a lot more simple for the people that I love.
100%.
Yeah, man, it's crazy we've been having this and this conversation because it's just honestly it's like a chin check for me even. It's like, okay, this is stuff that I need to handle ASAP.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, man, our conversation, bro, they double-edged swords because all of that stuff that all of a sudden there's still some things that I know that I need to do. You know what I mean? And like it's just I mean, it can be it's the smallest thing. Like, bro, you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I have like several businesses that are either in rotation or starting up. And I just realized that my wife don't have any of those passwords.
Yeah, the simple things.
Like if I clock out, bro, like all my business just gone because like she don't, you know what I'm saying? So it's small things like that we just got to do. Look, we can keep going with this, but we might have to do a part 2 of this. But look, thank you for allowing me to talk because I needed that. Number one,
yeah,
I definitely needed that. But Black Men Think podcast, man. Like, make sure y'all continue to send those questions in. We want to ask a black man and make sure that we handle those. We got some things going on in the pipeline as well. But hey, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, and keep listening, sharing, man. Keep listening, keep sharing. So, we'll see y'all next week.
The Black Men Think podcast.